Welcome to this episode of the Connected Construction Live series. This is actually the first series, and in the coming weeks, we'll likely be having more and more series, and I'll most likely be interviewing more people in the coming session. So today, I'm going to be your host and also the presenter. So my name is Onyema Udeze, and today I'm just going to be addressing a question, which is, what does BIM mean to you? So I want this to be as interactive as possible. So over the presentation, you can input your comments, your answers, your observations in the comment section, and I will address them after the presentation. So the idea is this presentation is going to last for about an hour. Within that 1 hour, I will try to present within the first 40 to 45 minutes, and then the remaining minutes I can use it to address any questions or comments that you've raised. So before I get started, I would like to tell you a bit about myself. Being the first time, this is my first time of coming live here on LinkedIn. So I'd like to introduce myself. So I'm an architect by profession, and I'm also a BIM modeler and a system designer. I'm one of the co-founders of Blaze Inc., which is a digital BIM consultancy outfit and digital integrations outfit that is based in Nigeria. So most of what I do with my time is creating BIM models, which can be architectural or MEP BIM models. And before I started working at Blaze full time, I also worked as a system designer in an AV integrations outfit in Nigeria, where I worked as a system designer. So during that period, I was able to learn how to design technology systems. So I'm also a system designer. So being part of the co-founders of Blaze, we are actually a BIM consultancy outfit in Nigeria, and we offer BIM modeling services mostly to SMEs, architecture, engineering, and construction firms in Nigeria. And also part of what I do mostly in Blaze is creating content. So I create content diverse forms. So in 2018, I authored a book titled The Essentials of Smart Building Technology, which is currently available in well over 15 bookstores, including the likes of Amazon, Apple, Google, Play Store, and all that. So the book is quite available on so many bookstores. And I also authored a number of online courses. So I have courses on Udemy, courses on Blaze Online Academy, and also more recently, I also became an instructor at LinkedIn Learning. So I'm also creating a number of online courses for LinkedIn. And also at Blaze, if you check most of our social media handles, you also see quite a number of contents we create, illustrative contents, long and short form articles. So I actually enjoy creating a lot of content. We also create podcasts and quite some interesting content centered around digital transformation in the build sector. And being a BIM modeler, I'm also an Autodesk certified professional for Revit, architecture, Revit, mechanical, and electrical disciplines. So I have well over 10 years of experience modeling in Revit. And of course, last but not least, like I mentioned earlier, I'm an instructor at LinkedIn Learning. So over the course of this presentation, if you have any comment, just input it into the comment section. I will make sure to respond to that. So some weeks ago, I raised this poll on LinkedIn to find out the primary reason why most professionals create 3D models. There are so many reasons that people create 3D models in the build sector. So I asked what is the number one reason why people create 3D models, and this was the outcome from that little poll I created. So it's not so surprising. Most people in the industry today, they create 3D models for visualization purposes. Some people create models for coordination purposes, some others for documentation, and some others for data mining and insight. So this is not completely exhaustive. People create 3D models for quite so many reasons. So this is just the most that, okay, great. Thanks that you can hear me. Thanks for the confirmation. So this is not all the reasons that people create 3D models. People create 3D models for so many reasons. But these are some of the ones that, these are some of the options I put up to get information from people. So when you actually look at that, when you look at this slide, you see that people create 3D models for a lot of reasons. Someone can create a 3D model for product design purposes. Maybe you're designing a new product. You can create 3D models to kind of see how the parts come together and all that. You can create 3D models for scenes, maybe an entertainment scene, let's say a movie. You can use software like 3ds Max and the likes to create a scene, a 3D model that can simulate how the whole characters can come together. Even automobile industry, they create 3D models to also kind of simulate their products before actually fabricating or producing the actual products. People also create 3D models for animation purposes, create characters for movies and all that. And as architects or professionals in the build sector, we also visualize our projects. So we create 3D models for rendering purposes and all that. And even more recently, we are beginning to create information-rich 3D models for, to create our BIM models. So these are so many reasons. There are just several reasons why people create 3D models, and it all depends on where you're coming from and where you're going to. So what do you want to do with the graphical and non-graphical information that you're creating? So that's just a typical scenario. So when you look at that, see that 3D modeling is just an example, but it points to the fact that we can do similar things and yet produce a completely different outcome for completely different purposes. So when you look at that, you see that in the industry today, some things on the surface level, they seem as if they are the same, but then when you investigate that further, you see that people actually attach different meanings to the same thing. And at the end of the day, they create completely different outcomes. So the meaning we attach to things oftentimes is based on our expectations and perhaps is also based on our experience levels. So when you look at the build sector today, you see that we've made a lot of progress in digital transformation and technology adoption in the past few decades. I mean, we've quickly progressed from a 2D drafting workflow to a 3D modeling workflow. Some people call this a progression from documentation to data optimization, while some others call it a progression from CAD, which is computer aided design, to BIM, which is building information modeling. So, but when you look at this, I mean, you tend to think that BIM actually means the same thing, just like 3D modeling. You might think that BIM actually means the same thing to every stakeholder in the build sector until you begin to search for the meaning of BIM on the internet. I mean, if you go to Google today and search and just type in what is BIM, you'll be surprised on the amount of definitions that will come up. I mean, some of these definitions come from professionals, some of them come from, researchers in the industry, some of them come from software vendors. I mean, there are different stakeholders in the industry, and we tend to attach different meanings to something that on the surface level you think is actually the same thing. So that's why this session I'm actually throwing it out open. What exactly is BIM and what does BIM mean to you? Right. So one of the most popular definitions of BIM is the one from National Institute of Building Sciences that define BIM as a digital representation of the physical and functional characteristics of a facility that serves as a shared knowledge resource for information about a facility that forms a reliable basis for decisions during its life cycle from inception onward. This is quite a mouthful of definition, but basically it looks as BIM as an information-centric process that creates a digital version of a facility, and that information now serves as a basis for making decisions across the entire life cycle of a built asset. It's a general definition, but when you really look at this in more detail, you see that this is not necessarily the same meaning that people attach to BIM when they implement BIM on projects. So just think about it. The bottom line for implementing BIM on a project for a design consultant is typically different from that of a general contractor. I mean, when a consultant is implementing BIM on a project, the company or the firm tends to think more around design related things, design and planning related aspects of BIM, while a contractor focuses more on the construction and implementation aspects of BIM. So the bottom line for both parties are not necessarily the same thing, but on the surface is the same. I mean, it's the same BIM that we're all implementing, right? And then the bottom line for a trade or a subcontractor is different from that of a building owner. I mean, a contractor or subcontractor is also different from that of a building owner. Building owner is looking at the operations phase and all that. Why trade subcontractors are looking at profit margin and all that. So all these things are quite different in terms of bottom line. And also when you look at it in a deeper way, you also see that we even have academics in the industry doing a lot of research, and we even have software vendors that provide the technology that even make BIM practicable. So these are all stakeholders in the industry, right? These stakeholders in the industry, to even make it a little bit more complex, you see that someone can even belong to more than one of these stakeholders. It could be a researcher and still be a professional or a consultant. It could be a contractor and still be a manufacturer and all that. So see that there are so many parties and there are so many constraints and so many factors that come into this thing. So now the real question is, what does BIM mean to you exactly? And why do you implement BIM on projects? Right. So at this point, I will also want you to impute your definitions in the comment section. I will come back to that. So just think about it without, the further presentation I'll make. Just think about it. What exactly does BIM mean to you? Why do you implement BIM on projects? Just put it in the comment section and we will talk about that in a bit. So to go further, according to the Building Smart BIM Execution Planning BIM Project Execution Planning Guide that is currently on Pennsylvania State University's website, bim.psu.edu. If you check that website and download the documents there which are freely available, their templates, you see that there are 25 major BIM uses in the industry today. There are 25 major BIM uses in the industry today that spans across the entire life cycle of a built asset, starting from planning to design to construction to operate. So under planning phase, you are seeing such BIM uses as existing conditions modeling, cost estimation, phase planning, programming, site analysis, and all that. And then that also leads to design reviews that takes you into the design phase. Under design phase, you begin to see other BIM uses as design altering, energy analysis, structural analysis, lighting analysis, mechanical analysis, other engineering analysis, LED evaluation, code validation, and also 3D coordination that leads you into the construction phase. And begin to see others under this phase as site utilization planning, construction system design, digital fabrication, 3D control and planning. That also leads to record modeling, which is under the operate phase. And here you begin to see other things like maintenance scheduling, building system analysis, asset management, space management, tracking, disaster plan. These are 25 most common BIM uses in the industry according to this survey. This exercise was sponsored by so many organizations, and they were able to create a BIM project execution planning guide. But even when you look at this critically, you see that this is not even exhaustive. Some people somewhere still have some minute reasons and BIM uses why they actually implement BIM on projects. Okay, let's even look at it in more detail. So as a consultant on a project, you're probably more interested in the planning and the design stage BIM uses on projects, like the BIM uses that come under the plan and the design phase. And then as a contractor or subcontractor, you're probably more interested in the construction stage BIM uses, which are the ones that come under the construction phase. And then as a client or a building owner, you're probably more interested in the operation stage BIM uses. So you see that we are implementing BIM on project, but the reasons why we implement BIM can actually differ among different parties and different stakeholders. So why the industry has made a monumental leap in recent years from just 2D drafting to optimizing data towards these diverse BIM uses and even more. You see that the workflows are still generally siloed. So we still tend to work in silos, even when we are all implementing BIM on projects. To a very large extent, we are still working in silos. I mean, if you take as an example the traditional contract or delivery method of buildings, as an example, in this, which is popularly referred to as the design build build, there are three major stages of delivering a built asset. You have the design phase, where the various consultants can come together. In an ideal scenario, they will collaborate, they will coordinate with each other and produce the designs for the project. Right. So during this phase, you produce all the various multidisciplinary models, drawings, details, and whatnot, right? And after that, that information or that drawing and models will now be used as a basis for bidding. And then perhaps, depending on the method that was used, maybe the lowest bidder from the contracting side will now win the contract. And then at this stage, so when you look at this, see that during that design stage, these consultants didn't get any much information from the contracting side. And then eventually the contracting side will now use that design to now implement the project. And at this stage also, when the contractors and subcontractors begin to deliver the building, they also receive very little or no information from the consultants. So the designers or the consultants might say they implemented BIM on the projects, but in reality, they are just working in a very small fraction of the delivery of these built assets. The same thing with the contractors. In fact, in advanced climes, it's the contractors that even implement BIM more on the project. So they are also implementing BIM, but they're also working to a very large extent in silos. So how do you connect all these stakeholders? Because at the end of the day, we are delivering one built asset, right? So while the diverse stakeholders in the build sector might attach different meanings to BIM, you now see that the penetration of cloud-based solutions into the sector is increasingly connecting these stakeholders and their respective activities. So you see that as an industry, we've progressed from what some people call the era of documentation. We've progressed from documentation to optimization, data optimization. So documentation, we are mostly working in CAD, and then optimization, we are mostly working in BIM tools and all that, which are mostly scattered across the globe in different desktops. So there's no real-time collaboration. But now we are now moving to an era of connection, where we're now leveraging cloud-based tools and solutions to connect all these stakeholders, the contracting and the consulting side, and every major stakeholder on the project in real time. So in the remaining part of this presentation, I'll be using some cloud-based tools to illustrate how we can connect the various stakeholders on a project, which is why I refer to as the era of connection. Right. So a very popular solution you find in the industry today is Autodesk Construction Cloud, which is basically an umbrella brand of Autodesk suite of AC offerings that connects um, workflows, teams, and data across the entire project lifecycle through one common data environment. So this is just one of the popular solutions, cloud-based solutions you find in the industry today. So this is basically a collection of different tools and software. So, and it's also broken down into the life cycle of a built asset. This is from design to plan to build to operate. So under design, you are beginning to find such tools as the Autodesk AC collection, which is basically a collection of so many software, about 25 of them, right? So you have the likes of Revit, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Plan 3D, InfraWorks, and so many software, about 25 of them that comes under a collection, right? So this collection of software make up the design phase. You also have cloud-based tools like BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro. And then under the plan phase, you now begin to see other tools like Autodesk Quantify, Autodesk BIM Collaborate, Assemble, Building Connected, and all that. And then basically the plan phase is the stage between your design stage and the construction on the field. So you want to plan how you deliver the building on the site. So that's basically what they refer to as the plan phase. And then when you get to the field, you begin to find such tools as Autodesk Build, Plan Grid, which is a mobile app at the moment, and then Autodesk Course, Autodesk BIM Collaborate, BIM 360 Plan, Pipe, and all that. Those are under the build phase. And then under the operate phase, you now have the 360 Ops, Autodesk BIM Collaborate. All this actually comes with Autodesk Docs, which is also available in the AC collection. So basically, Autodesk Docs, from the definition, is a common data environment, and it also serves as a document management and a cloud storage that connects all these diverse tools together. So basically, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is one platform, but then you have different modules and different solutions that have been integrated into a unified platform, right? So like I mentioned, this is not the only solution in the market. There are also solutions from other vendors like Procore, Trimble, Bentley, Upland, Graphisoft. There are so many vendors in the market, but I just use this ACC as a reference because personally, that's what I use. And also, it's kind of very complete. It's kind of merges both desktop-based tools and cloud-based tools. It's quite a complete solution, but there are also many other solutions in the market today. So I'll just use the Autodesk Construction Cloud to demonstrate how the cloud can truly connect every stakeholder on a project over the entire building delivery lifecycle, from concept to design to plan to construct to operate and all that, right? So I'll start with the plan and the design and how this platform actually does that. So basically, when you look here, you see, for example, this is currently the design collaboration module. So there are different modules that actually come together for this planning and design phase, right? So design consultants on a project, which are the people that work mostly at the design phase on a project, they can collaborate and coordinate in real time using the design collaboration, document management, and model coordination modules of this Autodesk Construction Class. So these are three different modules. Like I said, there are so many modules within the same platform. Depending on your own use case and your own pain point and your own business value, you choose the modules you work with. So for this plan and design phase, you work mostly with the design collaboration, document management, and the model coordination modules of the platform, right? So, and all these also come with the Autodesk Docs, which actually is a document management module. So this Autodesk Docs actually is a cloud-based solution, but on the cloud, it can open over 70 different industry file formats. I mean, these formats span beyond Autodesk software, even formats, files from other vendors like ArchiCAD and the likes can be opened either on the cloud or through a mobile app. They also have mobile apps. So this is just a way to show you that as a stakeholder in the industry, you don't necessarily need to have the software like Revit or AutoCAD to open the files. Someone can, maybe the consultant or the designer can send the 3D model, just share the link with you, and you can open it on the cloud and you make your inputs. You can navigate around the 3D model, you can cut section through it, you can make annotations without necessarily having to have the software. So these are the way you begin to see that these cloud-based tools are beginning to connect all the stakeholders on a project in real time. And these are remote because it's cloud-based. You can communicate and coordinate from any part of the world, right? So you also see that as reviewers on projects, you can easily make your contributions using the various markup tools in the 2D and 3D viewer of Autodesk Construction Class. So basically, there's something called the Forge viewer that can basically, that's what opens or can view all these diverse fabrication tools or tools that can use to make your own contribution. You can write text, you can draw revision cloud, you can make contributions, and the designers or the modelers or the consultants can see all this in real time, and everybody can actually coordinate and collaborate in real time. And then changes across different versions of 2D and 3D files and documents can be graphically reviewed right on the cloud. So let's say you are working on a project and you have a new update and you update the new version. So someone that was not part of the design team can easily go there and compare the new version you uploaded with the older version. And these two versions, you can begin to check what has been added, what has been removed, what has been modified. You can even filter this by disciplines or even by categories of elements. So person can graphically and visually see what has changed without necessarily being part of the design team. So these are ways you can see that these tools are beginning to connect different stakeholders. So maybe as a BIM manager, as a project manager on a project, you can just go in there, compare two different versions and see the changes between those two versions. Those are the kind of things you see during the design and the planning phase of a project. And then even clashes between the interdisciplinary models can be easily identified and resolved through the combination of the authoring tools and ACC platform. So for example, what you see here on the screen is a model that is a federated model. You have the combination of the architecture, MEP, and the structural model. Everything have been combined into one. And then as a review on the project, you use the model coordination model of this platform to identify clashes. For example, here you can see some pipes that clash with a wall. You can see the list of issues that have been identified during this coordination. And then even as it's at the moment, the softwares like Revit and Navisworks, they now have what is called an issues plugin. So while the reviewers are identifying issues on the cloud, they are seeing the same issues through the plugin within their modeling software. So you don't even need to send a file to someone. Maybe what most people do at the moment, you finish creating the model in a modeling software, and then the reviewer will use another software like Navisworks, and then after that, the person will send you back a report. Yes, it's quite efficient, but it's not that so efficient. So imagine someone is making revisions on the identifying issues on the cloud, and you are seeing it in real time within your modeling software, and you are resolving all those issues. So you are working in your own software on desktop, someone is reviewing it on the cloud, and everything is connected. So this is what we're looking at as era of connected construction. You don't have to create so much communication gaps between the various stakeholders on a project. So those are the design and plan stage. So now I want to also look at the build and the operate stage. So after you've designed, which is mostly the consultants, now you are moving to the field, which is now mostly the contractors and the subcontractors. So this same platform, because it's also everything is unified under the same platform, you also see how these contractors can also communicate with other stakeholders on the project in real time on the field. So this is just one module, which is the build module here. So you see the various features that actually make this possible. So this is the home page here. You can begin to see things like the percentage completion of the project. When the project will even begin, you see things like the sheets on the project, the members on the project. You see weather information about the location of that project. You can see the location of the project. You can see the activities on the project. You can see all the RFIs, request for information that's ongoing on that project. You can see even the members on the project, how many of them have the most up-to-date information on their mobile app, which is called the mobile sync status. So if you don't have the latest information on the mobile app, you see the percentage of the members on that project. So you see that with the mobile app, because most people that are working on the site, they are not going to site with their laptops and all that. They have the mobile app, which is actually the plan grid build app. So from that app, it actually synchronizes with this platform, and you can coordinate. All these features are also on the app. You can coordinate everyone on the app. So I will go through some of these features in a bit. But then when you look at it, you see there are general contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, and manufacturers, clients, consultants, and every other major stakeholder on a building project. They can coordinate in real time on the field using the build, document management, and cost modules. So here, you're now working with another 3 modules. During the design and plan, we talked about the design collaboration and model coordination modules. Now we are talking about the build and the cost modules. Of course, the document management is always there to serve as a common data environment. So these are the 3 modules you are working with mostly on the field. Of course, there are so many other modules within the platform, but these are the most important modules you work with. So you see that this connected construction workflow brings about immense savings in cost and time on project, which brings about, I mean, a lot of projects today run beyond time, budget, and cost budget on the project. So when you begin to connect stakeholders like this, you see that all these losses and waste can be minimized on projects. So I'll just run through some of the features of this field. So which is basically what you find that is listed here. So all these features here, I'll quickly run through some of them, and you can see how all these are actually applied on the field. So basically, the first I want to talk about is the sheets feature. So this, with the sheets feature, sheets can be easily published from existing models, BIM models of the project. So remember that the BIM model of this project is already on the same platform, right? So instead of you trying to export PDF files from your Revit, AutoCAD, or whatever software and begin to send to consultants through emails and whatnot, you just move to the file or to the model within the same platform, and from there you can publish sheets directly to PDF and then send it to the folder of the guys on the field. So you don't need to start as elongating the entire communication. It's within the same platform. You just go to the 3D model, export to sheets, and send it to the folder. And tomorrow, if there's an update, you repeat the same process, and the same document, the version number will just update. So the other kind of makes the whole communication very seamless. That's what the sheets feature basically is used for. And they also have the forms. So as project managers, this form enables them to set up activity checklists and also collect information from workers on a job site. So imagine that you have workers on the site and you need a series of activities that they will perform in a day. You can just create a form, or basically a form template for them. And at the end of the working day, they just go in there, create a form using that template, and you as a project manager, you just come in and just check the checklist that they've done all these things they're supposed to do on the work site. So basically, that's what the forms tool here is used for. It's mostly used by the project managers to manage the workers on the site. So you can see what the content of the template can contain, things like the work log, the materials, the equipment, and even their signature. So this actually makes life easier for the project managers. Just have a central platform through which all the workers on the site can report their daily updates and their progress reports and all that. And then, of course, you have the issues. We've already seen the issues when we're talking about model coordination. So issues feature actually helps to identify anomalies on a project, whether it's during design or on the field. With the issues feature, you can identify all these anomalies and then begin to address them. So for example, here you can see some of the issues that have been raised on the project. You can see that each issue has its own ID, and you can see the status of the issue, the type of issue. Issues can be during design. For example, you identify a clash, you can raise an issue about it, and then the guy that is creating the 3D model can resolve that issue within the BIM model. You can be on a site and you see something that needs to be rectified. You can create an issue out of it. You can even snap a picture attached to that issue, assign the issue to someone, assign a due date to it, assign a priority to it, and then with that, you're able to, that issue, you're able to assign people to it, and comments can be created and raised on the same issue, and eventually that issue will be resolved. And when it's resolved, all you have to do is to come here and change the status of the issue. So that is a typical example of what the issues does for you. And also you have the RFI, which is basically request for information. So basically, a request for information is used when information is required from other project members. But the way RFI works on this platform is that it has a workflow. So typically, RFI is either created by the contractors or the subcontractors on a project, and a lot of time they're trying to get an information from the consultant. So for example, a subcontractor can be a creator of RFI, and then the main contractor on that project could be the manager of RFI. So basically, when the creator creates the RFI, the manager will look at it first. If it's something that is worth it, you will now open it up. And once you open the RFI, the reviewers, which is now the consultants, can now review the RFI and provide the needed information. So when the reviewer reviews it, provide information, the manager will also look at it again and can now distribute it to all the parties that need that information. So you see that this is a very structured way of managing information flow on projects. And the important thing is that everything is coordinated on the same platform. So for example, here you can see this RFI that is created here, cost implication for cable tray vendor change and all that. It's currently in review. You can see the information about it, additional information, the status. You can see the co-reviewers on it. You can see the references. If you have documents that have been attached to that RFI, you see it here. I can also see the activities of the RFI right here. So you see that RFI, it helps to coordinate all the information that are flying around on the project in a very coordinated way. And at the end of the day, you can even export it as a report, and the managers can actually see all those information. So this is a very coordinated way of working on the project sites, unlike what we see today on most of our project sites. And they also have the meetings. So the meetings tool set in Autodesk Build allows project managers to create meetings, track attendance, create agendas, and also create minutes. So basically, with the meeting, all these features we've been talking about can be part of the meeting agenda. So you can see a typical meeting agenda right here, and you can attach RFIs, photos, forms, all these issues. They can be part of the meeting, and then during the meeting, all these things will be addressed one after the other. As you're addressing them, you'll be changing their status from here. You can even integrate all these general video conferencing platform like Zoom. You can even integrate it so that all the project members can receive the link and everything is coordinated from one platform. And the interesting thing is that at the end of the meeting, this same agenda can be exported as a report, and everyone that attended the meeting can receive an update and can even create follow-up meetings from there. So issues that were not resolved from here can easily become part of the agenda for the next meeting, and can also add more agenda to it. So you see that this actually helps to coordinate communication and interactions, coordination and whatnot between all the stakeholders on a project, unlike what we see today on projects. So that's what the meetings feature is there for. And they also have the submitters. So the submitter features enable documents created for consumption by other companies to run through a formal review process in Autodesk View. So while the RFI focuses more on information, submitters focus more on documents. So, but they basically use the same workflow. You have the creators, they create the submitter, the managers will review it. If it's worth it, then it will be sent to the reviewers, and then the reviewers will review it, and then at the end of the day, everyone that needs to receive the submitter will receive it. So this also helps to coordinate how information is being how documents are being shared between one party and another on a project. So just basically enables documents to be created for consumption by other companies when it runs through a formal review process in Autodesk Build. And then you also have the assets tool. So your assets tool in Autodesk Build allows teams to track and manage the life cycle of all project assets and equipment from design through commission and handover. So imagine a project, all the equipment and all the assets you have on that project. These are things that eventually will lead to the operations phase. So all these things, when you are able to track all the assets on a project during construction, you're able to track all of them. You can see the assets you have here, their categories, their status, and whatnot. All this eventually, when you get to the operations phase of that facility, you see that it becomes very, very seamless. So this is also what the assets tool in Autodesk Build is for. And then you also have the reports too. So the reports is basically a central location where you create and configure, schedule and view all the reports. There are so many types of reports you can create. You can even create your own custom templates of reports. So these are just some examples. You can create an issue detail report, issue summary reports, RFI detail reports, RFI summary reports, submitted item details, submitted item summary. These are all different types of reports you can create. So this is the central place that you can create, you can configure, you can schedule, and you can view other reports. And you can even share these reports with people on the project, even people that are not part of the project. You can generate your reports and share it to someone's email, and the person will be able to download that report and look at it. The report, depending on the type of reports you are creating, it can be in Excel format, it can be in PDF format. But basically, the reports to here allow you to generate all forms of reports, which most times is actually activity logs and whatnot of these various features that you also have here. So this report kind of unifies the whole thing. And then you even have a dedicated module for costs. So costs, we're talking about costs on the field. So things that have to do with the income, the expenditure, the change orders, and all that. So the cost module in Autodesk Build is very robust, and it enables you to manage the cost and budget changes to the project. So this is like 5D BIM on the field. People that do design, their own 5D BIM is mostly has to do with scheduling and all that. But when you're on the field too, this cost module is very robust. It allows you to manage all the cost and budget changes that take place on a project. And they also have another dedicated module called the Insight module, which basically delivers a unified project level data, analytics, and predictive insights on a project. And this integrates with partner data, and you have so many other vendors that actually integrate, and also integrate with the construction IQ, which is kind of an artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm that interprets the data that come into your project, and with that you can begin to make much more informed decisions about both the current project and future projects. So basically, this inside way it is like a dashboard that you can customize. So when you go to customize, you can begin to add custom dashboards from other platforms. For example, let's say you're working on a site and you're using a solution called smartv.io, which is basically an intelligent, is like a VR, is what I call it, is a video, it has like drones that kind of scans through the site and begin to identify where there are safety related issues. So all those real-time feed on your job sites can be integrated into your project to this Autodesk Construction Cloud. And imagine where you have drones that are scanning across your site in real time, and they are reporting what is ongoing on the site. Either the safety issue, it will report in real time. So all those various solutions, there's Smart View.io, there's HoloBuilder, there is eSolve, there are so many of them. You can integrate them into this insight. And from here, you can now begin to leverage data that is coming from all these platforms and now begin to make much more informed decisions. So this is like the brain, more or less, of the entire platform. This provides you with data, and you can now use analytics and all these other emerging artificial intelligence solutions to now make better use of all this. And you can even export this through this data connector that is here. Through data connector, when you export it, can even take it to other very powerful database or whatever solution that can now use it for other purposes. So this is like the data center of all the site's activities. Right, so when you look at all this, see that this brings about a truly connected construction workflow, which is very unlike what we see on most of our construction projects today. So with all the graphical and non-graphical information about the project and the assets on the project going into a common data environment from design to the project handover, you see that the facility manager and the owner, they will have enough information to efficiently manage our facility. So which is the essence of having a unified platform. So imagine that from the design and the planning phase to the construction phase, every information from all the stakeholders are going into a common platform. So when it gets to the operations phase, it's no brainer, you have enough information, right? So which is even where all these BIM 360 ops begin to come into play, right? So of course, the illustrations so far have been with Autodesk Construction Cloud series of solutions. Like I mentioned earlier, this is not the only solution in the market, but the whole idea is to show you how the cloud can be leveraged to connect various stakeholders on a project, right? So at this point, I'll still ask you again, what does BIM mean to you? So I would like to see your comments within the comment section of this live broadcast. So I'll be rounding up in a bit. So I'll look at all that and I'll begin to address it in more detail. Right. So, but for me, I would say that BIM means a multitude of things to a myriad of stakeholders, companies, and geographical locations based on multiple factors. There are so many stakeholders, so many companies with different financial capacities, different constraints, different business models, different use cases, different clients, and whatnot. And BIM means different things to different people. Honestly, today we talk about BIM as if it's just one thing, but BIM, in fact, there are so many definitions. There are a lot of things today that people call BIM that you begin to wonder if it's actually BIM. In fact, one of the easiest ways to confuse people today is to just use the word BIM. It can be very confusing. So the reality is that BIM means a lot of things to different people. But looking at it from a holistic viewpoint, the meaning we are actually attached to and the expectations we have of BIM, these things are not as important as the connection that BIM can bring when it's properly deployed with cloud-based solutions. So this will help to fill all these efficiency gaps. So you see that the more important thing is the connection that BIM can actually bring. Because if you look at it today, in more advanced clients, they hardly make use of the traditional delivery method like design, build. You begin to hear of such delivery methods as IPD, integrated project delivery, design, build, construction management, and all that. All this try to unify these various stakeholders. And when you actually tie this together with a cloud-based solution that all the various parties can communicate from any part of the world, and the information is flowing into the same platform, you see that all these communication gaps become most easily filled. And then this is basically what I refer to as the era of connected construction. So you're trying to connect all the stakeholders on a project in real time from any part of the world. So that's basically what I see as, the whole point of implementing BIM on a project. Is all about the connection and less about the meaning that we actually attach to BIM. So just before I close, of course, I mentioned earlier that I recently became an instructor at LinkedIn Learning, and the focus of my online courses is basically now around all this connected construction. So I'll be focusing more on the various tools that make cloud collaboration possible in our industry, spanning the entire life cycle. So the likes of this Autodesk Construction Cloud I talked about. At the moment, I have my first course is in the post-production stage. So in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks time, it will be live on Autodesk LinkedIn Learning. And then I'm already working on the second course, which will also come live in a couple of months time. So of course, it takes some time to become live on the platform. So basically, the focus of most of the courses I'll be creating is centered around this whole idea of connected construction how do we begin to bridge the gaps we have in our industry? Yes, we implement BIM on projects, but how connected is the whole workflow? So which tools do we use to connect all these stakeholders together? So that's the focus of most of these courses. It takes you through the step-by-step process of setting up all these tools and bringing all the stakeholders together. So yes, that is it for my presentation. At this point in time, I will quickly go into the comment section and see the questions that you have. So I can see some questions here. So if you have any question, feel free to type into the comments. I can see Samuel Oyeniyi says that BIM means the integration of ideas, design, functions, activities among various professionals. Yeah, so that's very, very, very correct, because the whole idea is the connection that BIM brings between these various presentations. So I've used about, I started 15 minutes late, so I have about 15 minutes left. So if you have any question, just feel free to type it into the comment section here, and I'll respond to your question. So sorry once again for joining late. I had some technical difficulties before I came live. Yes, thank you, Ezechiel. It's great to see me. And thank you, Anupam. I hope I pronounced your name well. So if you have any question, go ahead and type it into the chat box. I still have a couple of minutes left. So in coming episodes, I'll most likely be interviewing more people. So it's not going to be really presentation like this. It's most likely going to be interviews. Can discuss around some of these topics. So in the coming weeks, I will be announcing how we'll be going about this. So this is actually the first episode, and I thought to start with this presentation. So in the coming episodes as well, we also have thought leaders in the industry come and discuss around the whole idea of connecting the way we work in the build sector and the industry. Okay, so far I've not been seeing any question. Let me check. Okay, someone just asked a question. It says, who manages the Autodesk build model, the consultant or the contractors team? Okay, that's a good question. Okay, the way the Autodesk Construction Cloud works is that there are different privilege or permission levels on a project. You have what is called the account administrators. So depending on the company that created the project and invited other parties, you have account administrators, right? And then after account administrators, you now have project administrators. So it depends on the permission level you have on the project. If you have a permission level, access level on a project, then you can be able to access more things. For example, you can be able to see all the issues on the project. You can be able to see all the RFIs, all the forms and whatnot. So basically, project managers on a project can oversee everything on that particular project, while account managers can oversee all the different projects on that account. So you also have lower permission levels, and then the project managers can now begin to assign. So the way it works is depending on the license that you purchase. If you purchase Autodesk Build license, that determines the module you receive. So let's say the consultant on a project, if they don't want to have full access to the build module on that project, they can purchase let's say BIM Collaborate Pro, for example. BIM Collaborate Pro comes with design collaboration, module coordination, and document management. So with that, they don't see the build module. They focus more on design, but of course, their models are still on the same project. So the module they purchase determines what they buy. So in summary, it depends on the license you purchased and the access level you have on that project. So if you don't have access level to the build model, even if you are the consultant or the contractor on that project, you will not be able to manage it. But someone can purchase the build module, for example, and then invite you over to it and then give a permission level. That permission level is what determines how much information you can see and how much control or how much management you can actually exhibit on that project. So, Mr. Victor, Design Gates, I hope this answers your question. Yeah, Olumide, you're welcome. Okay. So, how do I get to participate in the course module? Okay, like I mentioned earlier, I create different online courses. I have courses on Udemy, I have courses on Blaze Online Academy, and I'm also creating courses on LinkedIn Learning. So on LinkedIn Learning, all you have to do is to be a premium member of LinkedIn. If you're a premium member of LinkedIn, you have access to LinkedIn Learning automatically. So you have access to all the courses on LinkedIn, not just my courses. So any course that they make available on LinkedIn Learning, you can just go through the course, and that's basically it. So depends on where the course, but most of the things I'm talking about here are going to be available on LinkedIn Learning. So you don't have to be perpetually a member of LinkedIn Learning. Perhaps you could just subscribe for a month, and that 1 month can use it to run through the important courses you need to. And even I think every year they give anyone 1 month free access. So that depends on you to activate it. So you can still use that 1 month to run through the various courses. But beyond that, you can just subscribe for 1 month and you have access to all the courses on LinkedIn Learning. So my first course is coming in a couple of weeks, so you can access it if you're a premium member of LinkedIn. So I don't know if I'm missing any question here. Someone sent a link, kingspan.com. Okay, maybe I'll check the link later. So I have just about 10 minutes left to end the session. If you have any question, you can go ahead and put it in the comment section and I'll highlight it here. And I also created an article on this presentation. So of course, the recording of this session will be available, but if you also want to read the article, you can just check my profile. The last article I created is actually on this. Everything I've said here is on that article. And even at the end of the article, you can download my presentation. So the PowerPoint presentation that I use for this particular session, you can download it there for free. Yeah, Ajana, thanks very much. Thank you very much. So you can just read the article there. It's just basically the same thing that it talks about. So in case you need to get a copy of the presentation, you could just download it for free. It's actually on SlideShare, and the link is on that presentation. So for your desktop, you can download the presentation free of charge. So just a few minutes to go. I don't know. Yeah, thank you, Olumide, for your welcome. Okay. So it appears we don't have any more questions. Of course, okay. Of course, you can always come to the post on my account. You can always come there to post your questions later, and I'll still try to answer it if I can. But you can also ask it, that's fine. So, Mr. Moses, okay, that's trying to define BIM, the actualization of dream designed for efficient functioning design, operations, and techniques. Yeah, that's a very great definition. So, like I said, at the end of the day, it boils down to what exactly you are trying to achieve. So, we cannot define BIM in so many ways, depending on where we are coming from and where we are going. So, but it's very important that we connect with other stakeholders in the industry. That's irrespective of the meaning you attach to BIM. The more important thing is the connection that it can bring, especially when you connect through all these cloud-based solutions, because it's not about the solution actually, it's about the fact that that's what makes it possible to communicate with other stakeholders on a project from any part of the world, right? So without it being on the cloud, you'll be limited to just your location. But being cloud-based, you can connect with all the stakeholders in real time. So that's basically the whole idea of this. So I'll still drop the link to the article, but you can just check my post, my profile. You see the last article I wrote, that was 2 days ago. It's just the same topic. So you can read it and download the presentation from there. And if you also need any more clarification, you can also send me a message or you can drop it on the comment section right here. So at this point, I think we are pretty much done. Thank you very much, and apologies once again for joining a couple of minutes late. I had some technical difficulties at the beginning. So in the coming weeks, I'm likely going to be having more sessions with more people. So I used to have a series of podcasts. So perhaps I can also feature some of those podcasts here as live sessions, and we can begin to interact more on how to improve the build sector, especially in developing countries like Nigeria and Africa generally. So thank you all for your time. I hope to see you in the next live session. Thank you.